Imagine for a second that you are looking at the inner workings of a billion-dollar multinational corporation, right? The executives on the top floor are, well, they're absolutely terrified of their own employees. Down on the ground floor, those employees are literally putting each other in the hospital.
Yeah.
And middle management, they're so paralyzed by the chaos that they're handing out paid vacations just to keep the staff from, burning the building to the ground.
I mean, it sounds like the plot of a dystopian corporate thriller, like a complete and utter structural collapse of a company.
Exactly. But we aren't talking about a fictional corporation. We are taking a deep dive today into the current, completely chaotic state of Real Madrid. On Bernabeu Notes, we don't just look at the table, we look at the reality. And the reality is, this club is in absolute freefall.
Unprecedented freefall.
Right. We're going to unpack the locker room turmoil, the superstar power struggles, and this drastic cultural reset the club is attempting to execute right now.
And our mission today, for everyone listening, is to cut through the pristine, heavily curated PR spin. We want to show you exactly what happens when player empowerment crosses the line into complete anarchy, and how one of the most prestigious sporting institutions on the planet is trying to put the genie back in the bottle with their latest managerial hire.
So let's get right into the symptoms of this disease, because it is a disease. To really understand how broken the culture at Valdebebas has become, you have to look at the physical reality of the squad. The defining moment, the literal breaking point, is this shocking training ground incident involving Aurelien Tchouameni and Federico Valverde.
Right, it's the defining moment of this entire crisis. You have a situation where a basic disagreement on the training pitch escalates to extreme physical violence. Tchouameni is struck, he is knocked completely unconscious, suffers a serious gash, and actually has to be hospitalized.
Just to pause and put that in perspective for anyone listening, imagine if the VP of sales knocked out the marketing director, left him bleeding on the boardroom floor, and had to be rushed to the emergency room. How in the world does a club of this magnitude let a hospitalizing fight happen without massive, immediate consequences?
Because the institutional instinct, especially at a club like Real Madrid, is always to protect the brand first. The immediate reaction from the board wasn't to call a disciplinary hearing. It was, damage control. But the terrifying part isn't just the physical altercation. It's the psychological reaction of the rest of the squad.
The aftermath is incredibly dark. When the team realized Tchouameni was physically okay, that he just had some cuts and wasn't critically injured, the sentiment in the room wasn't relief. Half the locker room essentially reacted by saying, he deserved it. It's about time someone put him in his place.
Which tells you that you're no longer looking at a football team.
Half the locker room cheered a hospitalizing assault.
Exactly. You're looking at warring factions wearing the same training kit. It highlights a complete collapse of internal hierarchy and basic professional empathy. And look, we have to talk about Valverde here. Internally, he's become a primary catalyst for this poison.
Now wait, hold on. I'm going to push back on that. Externally, he's their golden boy. He's the passionate, bleed-for-the-shirt warrior. Are you saying his passion translates into this hyper-aggressive tribalism behind closed doors?
I am absolutely saying that. Look, it's a deeply entrenched factionalism built entirely around these two players. You cannot have Tchouameni and Valverde sharing the same oxygen in that dressing room long-term when the friction has reached this level. It creates a ticking time bomb. Inevitably, one of these massive assets is going to be forced out.
But a fight like that doesn't just happen in a vacuum.
Right.
It's the end stage of a disease.
If you've ever had a boss who is too scared to discipline your underperforming coworker, you know exactly how toxic this feels for the people actually trying to work. How does a professional locker room devolve into a fight club?
It's the leadership vacuum.
Yes. The last three managers, Carlo Ancelotti, Alvaro Arbeloa, and Xabi Alonso. It's a cascading failure of authority. If you track the timeline, you look at the final days of Ancelotti, then the transition to Arbeloa, and finally Alonso. These managers weren't just getting out-tacticked on the weekend, they were fundamentally castrated by their own squad. The players essentially refused to be trained.
Refused to be trained. They wouldn't even watch video analysis. In modern elite football, where matches are won on millimeter-precise tactical adjustments, these guys are refusing to look at a screen.
I mean, it's pure arrogance.
They didn't want to engage in rigorous physical training. They just wanted to play light scrimmages, kick the ball around, and go home.
It's untracked talent. They believed they were so individually brilliant that the actual unglamorous work of football was beneath them. And because the managers had zero institutional backing, they couldn't enforce discipline. A normal manager would say, if you don't watch the video, you sit on the bench.
Right.
But here, the managers couldn't do that, so they resorted to bribery.
The bribery aspect is just insane. Look at Xabi Alonso. They play a Wednesday night match in Bilbao. They win 3-0. It's a short, luxurious, private flight back to Madrid. And Alonso gives the team Thursday and Friday off.
2 full days.
2 full days off in the middle of the competitive season just to keep them happy.
That is the ultimate white flag. Alonso realized incredibly quickly that he couldn't govern these players as professionals, so he started treating them like spoiled children. You give them treats so they don't throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
And before him, Arbeloa did the exact same thing. The moment Arbeloa stepped into that locker room, he capitulated. He dropped his authority entirely. It got so bad that players like Brahim Diaz, a player, not a coach, had to step up and physically confront younger players who were acting out.
Because the coaching staff was too terrified to do it? But hold on, though. If the coaches were clearly sinking, if they were handing out vacation days like candy and letting the players run the asylum, why didn't the front office step in? Where were the adults in the room?
Well, this is the crux of the institutional rot. The front office didn't just fail to back the coaches up, they actively undermined them. Look at the defining moment of this entire era, Florentino Perez texting Xabi Alonso directly.
Right, the club president.
Yeah.
He texts his manager with a very specific, chilling directive. He just says, treat Vinicius well.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that message because it explains everything. The club's entire financial model relies on Vinicius's global brand. He drives jersey sales, sponsorships, global TV rights.
He's the cash cow.
Exactly. To the board, protecting a $200 million asset's ego is mathematically more important than the manager's training schedule. By bypassing the manager and telling him not to upset the star, Perez completely neuters Alonso. He becomes a ghost on the sideline. The players aren't stupid. They know the manager has no real power over them, so why would they ever listen?
It's corporate self-sabotage on an epic scale. By protecting the asset from discipline, you destroy the entire ecosystem the asset needs to thrive. And when the manager is neutered like that, nature takes its course. A power vacuum opens up. If the coach isn't the king, the players realize the throne is empty.
And that's exactly why we're seeing this bitter civil war between Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappé.
Right, when there's no authoritative figure commanding respect, the princes will fight for the crown. It is a highly toxic, behind-the-scenes Cold War. They are actively fighting to be the singular, undisputed flagship face of the franchise for the next 5 years.
I mean, it's Succession, but with cleats.
That's exactly what it is.
This isn't just about who takes the penalty kicks on a Sunday. This is about who controls the narrative, the branding, and the power dynamic of the entire institution. And they are using entirely different weapons to fight this war.
Right, you have aggressive maneuvering behind the scenes, largely orchestrated by Mbappe's camp. His father is operating almost like a shadow agent, stirring up incredible amounts of trouble in the background, constantly whispering, constantly politicking. Mbappe's ultimate goal isn't just to coexist. He wants a monopoly.
He fundamentally wants both Bellingham and Vinicius out of the club.
He wants to clear the deck entirely. But that brings us back to Vinicius, and his situation adds a whole other layer of chaos to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Vinicius is in the final year of his contract, and the club, realizing they are rapidly losing control of their own roster, is considering a wildly aggressive, almost draconian tactic if he refuses to renew.
The permanent revisable starting status.
Which is just a very polite, bureaucratic way of saying, we will bench you permanently to destroy your leverage.
Right.
But wait, I have to jump in here. If Vinicius is their primary attacking weapon, and he absolutely is, isn't threatening to bench him just cutting off their own nose to spite their face, you're going to bench your best player out of spite.
I don't think it's spite. It's a desperate game of chicken. Look, letting a star of Vinicius's caliber, a player entering his absolute prime, reach the final year of his contract without an extension is gross negligence by the board.
Yeah, they messed up.
If he leaves on a free transfer, it's not just a loss of talent, it's a loss of hundreds of millions of dollars in capital. They saw all the warning signs on the highway, and they kept driving straight into the wall. Now they are trapped. If they bench him, they hurt the team's chances on the pitch and hurt their own product.
But if they don't bench him and he leaves for free, it's a historic, institutional humiliation.
Exactly. It sets a precedent that the players are utterly untouchable.
So let's take a breath and survey the battlefield here. You have Bellingham and Mbappé in a Cold War. You have Mbappe's dad causing chaos. You have Vinicius in a high-stakes contract standoff. And you have a divided locker room that literally just hospitalized a teammate.
The inmates are completely running the asylum.
They really are. The front office finally looks around at the Flames and realizes their collective madness of the last 2 years has failed. So what is their emergency solution? They bring in the ultimate sheriff, José Mourinho.
I love this move. It is a massive admission of defeat by the board, sure. But you don't bring in Mourinho unless you are desperate to reinstate a draconian principle of authority. This is the definitive end of the vibe manager era at Real Madrid.
And for anyone unfamiliar with the term, a vibe manager is essentially a coach hired not for their rigorous tactical genius, but for their ability to massage massive egos, keep the superstars happy, and basically manage the vibes rather than the training sessions. Mourinho is the exact opposite of that.
The absolute opposite.
But my question is, isn't he just going to pour gasoline on an already burning locker room? I mean, he's famous for burning bridges. This feels suicidal to me.
No, I disagree. That's a popular narrative, but you're missing a key nuance about Mourinho. He is incredibly politically savvy. He knows exactly how to read a boardroom. He knows that if Florentino just spent a fortune on a player, that player has to be on the pitch.
Okay.
He knows the president wants Vinicius renewed. He isn't going to create unnecessary fires with the ownership. But what he will do is ensure that acting like a fool, refusing to train, or losing matches finally has real, tangible consequences again.
So he's there to end the normalization of losing.
Yes.
These players have been told for 2 years how handsome they are, how brilliant they are, even while they were dropping points and skipping film sessions. Mourinho's main job is to remind this squad of how terrible their attitude has been and force them to actually put the work in.
And crucially, the front office is finally operating like a real club again. They're actually backing the manager this time. They realize that sending texts to protect players is what caused this mess. And to help Mourinho fix the culture from the inside, the club hasn't just relied on his authoritarianism, they've brought in reinforcements.
Right, the cultural antibodies. I find this fascinating. They've brought in mature, Spanish, family-oriented World Cup winners, guys like Marc Cucurella and Rodri. They aren't just buying talent anymore. They are explicitly buying values.
It's a brilliant structural move. You drop Rodri and Cucurella into that dressing room, and suddenly you have immediate, grounded veteran leadership.
Because they've been there.
Right. These are guys who just won a World Cup, who know exactly what elite, unified team culture looks like, and who carry a maturity that this squad desperately lacks. They are the counterweight to the toxicity of the Valverde-Tchouameni factions and the Mbappé-Bellingham ego battles.
So Mourinho can set the law from the top, and guys like Rodri can police the locker room on the ground.
Exactly. So the manager doesn't have to fight every single battle himself.
It is a massive, coordinated structural reset. But they are on the clock here. This has to work, and it has to work fast, because the tension in that building is suffocating.
The clock is absolutely ticking.
Right.
You cannot carry this much baggage into the spring fixtures. The physical altercations, the contract standoffs, the battle for the franchise banner, Mourinho has to diffuse all of this while simultaneously winning matches.
Which is an insane ask.
It is. If the results on the pitch don't accompany this cultural reset immediately, the whole project could collapse before it even takes root.
The sheer scale of this dysfunction is breathtaking. I mean, we have walked through an incredible journey today. We started with a hospitalized player and a locker room cheering the violence. We explored the mechanics of cowering managers handing out private jet vacations to avoid confrontation because they are undermined by their own president.
Yeah.
We unpacked a superstar Cold War that threatens to tear the brand in half. And it has all culminated in the arrival of José Mourinho, backed by new, mature locker room leaders, attempting to clean up a mess of historic proportions.
What is happening at Real Madrid right now is the ultimate case study in organizational behavior. It really transcends sports entirely. It shows you that when supreme talent is allowed to operate without strict accountability, when middle management is stripped of their authority by the executives, the entire structure rots from the inside out. It doesn't matter if you are a football club or a Fortune 500 company. Anarchy is always the endgame of unmanaged ego.
It is a profound lesson in leadership, which leaves you, the listener, with a final, very provocative question to ponder as we watch this season unfold. If Mourinho succeeds, It proves that traditional, strong leadership and strict accountability still matter at the highest level.
Right.
But if he fails, if he is swallowed whole by these egos, and the players win this war too, does it mean the era of the authoritative head coach in elite sports is permanently dead, replaced entirely by players who demand total control and subservient vibe managers?
It's an existential question for the future of the sport, honestly, and the season might just give us the answer.
We will be tracking every single development right here. That's it for today's deep dive on Bernabé Notes. We hope this helped cut through the noise and give you a clearer picture of the absolute madness happening behind the scenes.
Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're breaking this stuff down every single day, and trust me, you do not want to miss what we have coming up next.
Yeah, get in the comments. Let us know if you think Mourinho can actually pull this off or if the players are just going to run him out of town. Until next time, keep your eyes on the pitch.